What inspires me to build bridges through music is kind of harnessing that power to heal. And I think that lies very strongly in music in order to benefit the community and help tackle issues that different kinds of populations are facing at the moment, especially in COVID. If I can change the world, I would I would push for more creative outlets, especially in a place where STEM is very much needed. I think there's also a place for arts to kind of interweave in order to make a whole well-rounded society.
What inspires me to build bridges to music is to be a part of something bigger than I am and to demonstrate my passion, my drive that I have for music through other people. I sometimes feel that it's hard for me to connect to other people. And when I do music, it just allows me to not think, just feel, and just understand somebody on a different level. If I could change the world, I don't want people just to be more happy. Like I see people on the street all the time, not even cracking a smile. Like you could smile, say hi, and they can just walk right past you. And even with COVID happening and the mask on, I feel like that disconnection is even more. So I want people to feel emotion and feel connected because they're not alone. And that's how we're willing to change the world.
Lauren,
So,
what part of the Seattle area do you live in?
So back home for me is, if you're familiar with where South Center Mall is, I'm like 10 minutes from there. But I mainly
I'm sorry, 10 minutes from where?
South Center Mall in
yeah.
Tukwila.
Yeah.
really?
I live up in U District when school's in session.
Which part of the Seattle area are you in?
Right now I'm living in the Finney area,
Okay.
Finney Ridge. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Did you travel with me with Macklemore?
I did, yes. We sat in the plane together, yes. Uh-huh.
I just dream of the sights of the city. Yeah, so I think with being in college, it's all about reflection now. And I think about how I started growing up with my grandma who taught me piano. And even though, as a kid, you get forced to learn music, you're like, I don't want it. But then after a while, you kind of float back to it and you realize this is actually something that's deeply ingrained in me now. Um, so since then, I've been finding ways to keep weaving music into my life. And even though it's not my major, like I'm majoring in education or social work, I find that even if it might not seem directly related, I feel like there are threads that can be woven to pull those together. That's very beneficial. And so what I find really exciting about IBuildBridges is you focus on music, but also there's like a social justice aspect to it. And I think that's what's really exciting is it's IBuildBridges seems like a really good opportunity for me to find those places I can weave all my interests into one.
Well, part of my background, I've done a lot of musical educational programs similar to IBuildBridges. Like Mr. Aguado said, I did the Macklemore's residency. So that was a huge collaborative endeavor where we were set into different groups where we collaborated for songwriting for lyrics. And then we also collaborated with a producer as well for our songs and then got to perform. So it reminds me very similar to what IBuildBridges does, where you guys have your rehearsals, you come and learn songs together, and then you perform. I also am the frontman for a band as well. So I know how to communicate with other musicians, even though I'm not necessarily too well off on playing instruments myself. I can still know how to communicate with other musicians, and I know when to take control and when it's my turn to just lay back and be support. We are all divided, individual people. When it comes to making bread, we never equal. We just spread around the crumbs. I'm kind of evil.
Yeah, so actually reading this question brought to mind is my current rooming situation. I knew I knew a friend from back in middle school, and we have very different religious beliefs. And then I just met someone for the first time in freshman year, and we all somehow ended up living together. And especially during a pandemic, it's really interesting to see how we can still manage to coexist as like three in one little room. So it's really fun that I can ask them things about their own background, and then they can ask me about mine and see where that's kind of different, where it's the same. I think being able to have someone who's willing to have those open conversations is very beneficial. And it's very interesting because I'm the kind of person who's not satisfied by like one view. I want to hear different kinds of things. And I feel like, especially in my line of study at the moment, it puts me at a disadvantage to not know about other things. And I think there's no harm. And so, for example, food. I feel like food is something people can always bond over. My roommate is vegan. And then my other roommate, she was celebrating Lent and she was giving up fast food. So that was one time I got to kind of pull from both of their backgrounds to find a way to cook something that worked for everyone. And I thought that was really fun.
So I actually had the opportunity to travel to Guatemala when I was I'm trying to remember now, 19. So that was about 4 years ago. And I have family there, so it was really interesting to be able to integrate and meet my culture, my family over there. And it was so different than being in America, because the people there were so much more family oriented and really centered around community and doing things with family. Like, I felt like sometimes when I go to my family in Indiana, of course they accommodate me in some ways, but they just really seem to be like wanting to make sure they do things together as a family. And even the way their household is set up, because I went to multiple families' houses and I had to stay with them, they all maintain that strong family connection. And that's something that I really admired. And I am very close to my family as well. And it was great to be able to get even closer to my other side of family that I haven't got to see. And I think I learned that not everyone is like so aggressive. Like in America, things seem so aggressive, so fast paced. Like, oh, you have to be thinking about yourself, the bottom line, like all this pressure. And they just seemed very not exactly laid back, because of course there's that still pressure to your family gives you to do something with yourself, like to follow your goals and follow your passion. And I feel like their family was very supportive of them, and that's how I see myself with my friends, and that's how I want to continue to grow in as a young man and more forward.
I just dream of the sights of the city, fantasizing of the... Yeah, so strength-wise, I would like to think I'm really good at keeping an open mind, and what that helps me with is kind of, it helps me keep my eyes, my heart, my ears open to what's going on around me. And so in any organization I'm part of, I'm usually able to help with like connecting them to something that might be helpful, or maybe we're looking for people we could partner with. I'm also like looking everywhere just because I think it's rooted in a curiosity that drives me. I just want to know what's everywhere. And so I think that also helps me continue to learn and never really get tired of it. And I think that's mainly what drives me in everything I do. And so that's definitely something I could bring into IBuildBridges. But also, right, as I find myself in new places and new circumstances, that is also my own challenge of like pushing myself to be in those uncomfortable new places. And so that might be a little challenge for me that I continue to like push myself to go into, especially because if I don't know too much about it, there's that feeling of like, you have to jump into this cold shower you might be too scared to jump into. But I think every time I overcome those challenges, it becomes less and less of something that holds me back.
I would say for my guests, I'm a server. Like I like to serve people. I like to cater to them. I like to see what their needs are and accommodate them in the best way that I can. I'm very team oriented. Like when I am with a group of people, I tend to blend and mesh well. I think some of the challenges though that I have with that And I find myself sometimes having a hard time being opinionated, really opinionated. Like if I have like a lot of opposition or something in my band, I sometimes go along with them, and that's not necessarily a bad thing to do. But sometimes I really have an idea that I feel strongly about, and I don't always able to present it in the best way possible, in the best way where I'm going to not diminish my idea. And I also feel like a great asset I have is being able to have a calm energy. Like I've always been told that when I'm in the room, people tend to be more relaxed. They're not as rowdy. And I do have a very serious aspect of me when I get down to business. I kind of like enough playing around. Like we need to do this, and I don't want to mess around too much when I get in my certain focus zone. But when I'm not in that zone, I'm very laid back. We are all divided, individual people. When it comes to making bread, we never equal. We just spread around the crumb.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of just yesterday. I was looking at old concert videos on my phone, and I think just there's a kind of joy that comes from seeing a group perform on stage. And in its own way, it's kind of like a symbolic way of representing people. Like you have, maybe the drums, the guitar, the singer, they're all doing different parts, but together they make this beautiful music. And so I think symbolically, it also shows people that no matter how different you can be, there are still beautiful things that can come through it together. And so I think even through that, it's inspiring to kind of show people that no matter how different, don't turn people away, because you never know what beautiful things you can create together.
I know from my personal experience, when I got to see performers who I admired be on stage, that just gave me light. And even with people who I don't know, when I feel a message, when I hear something I can connect to, I take that home with me, and I can feel when those people are being genuine and when they are really feeling those emotions, that I take that home with me, and I use that for either my own inspiration for music, or I try to emulate something that I see. Like one thing I did when I was performing, of course, and before COVID, was I always made sure to thank the people who were before me, the people who are coming after me, and the people who are providing the space. And that's something that I didn't always acknowledge when I first started performing. I just was just, most of all, because I was just nervous and getting new to it. But besides that, I wasn't always necessarily acknowledging how I got to this position and who put me here. Mm-hmm. And so I think that like having a cohesive theme and being able to present that really can take away something for the audience. And that's what I try to do with my own music. And with the song I'm going to be presenting you is one of my original pieces, and it's about being true to yourself, staying true.
I just dream of the sights of the city. Yeah, so I think, especially with recent events with my school, having to think of my senior year, I think even though it's not maybe people to people kinds of bridges, I always have to think about how to connect a lot of things. How will my education major tie in with my social work major? How will those two things connect with music? And that's something I always keep thinking about, like how can I integrate music into my work for the benefit of the community? So for example, I think about art therapy, I think about arts in the community for maybe youth who could benefit from like supportive creative development. So for me, being in this program will help me get an insight of a musical community, especially somewhere that's local. It's usually like I see these kinds of communities elsewhere where it might not be as accessible to me. So this is really interesting to me in the sense of having a case example of how music can be used as a form of like social justice movement or as a form of like helping the community. So I think professionally, that's how I see this, but also for me, it just makes my heart happy to be part of music because it's not my major currently. So I'm always just finding ways to still be involved in any way I can.
Of course, there's the performance aspect of it. I always appreciate honing on my skills on being a better performer. And I've seen a couple of your guys. Actually, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've been to all of your in-person performances, and most of the Facebook and YouTube live performances. And I like how there's so much stuff going on stage. It's very exciting, and I just gravitate towards that a lot. And it's very exciting and happy to see all these people, all these musicians having a platform and being able to show themselves.
Thank you,
And
thank you.
I was going to say thank you guys for being able to provide all of that. And I think that connecting to other artists is something that I enjoy doing. And so being able to have more people to collaborate with is also a great asset or benefit that I see to being part of IBuildBridges, because I love to work with music. I love to have a challenge. And like even right now with my band, we're like working on more broadening our style of music, being more experimental. And it's great to be challenged and be presented with something that I'm not comfortable with. And that's what I see with IBuildBridges. There's a lot of variety in music that you guys play, which I like.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
I
I
build
build
bridges.
by the stream of the sights of
Thank
the
you.
care until we
city,
Thank
talk
you.
to you next.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
fantasizing
Yeah.
of the
Thank
lights
you. Bye.
glowing gold. Of the stream of the bustling taxis and a world that never gets old.